Welcome, I'm Janak Goel, and in this section I will review some important anatomical concepts of wrist and hand. I describe the examination of wrist from dorsal and from the volar aspects. I include the medial and lateral structures in the dorsal examination because the tendons on the lateral and the medial side belong to the dorsal extensor compartment. The dorsal examination includes the extensor tendons, the joints of wrist, the triangular fibrocartilage, the scapholunate ligament, the radial and ulnar collateral ligament on the radial and ulnar side of the wrist. The structures on the volar aspect are carpal tunnel, the Guyon's tunnel, the flexor retinaculum, the palmaris longus tendon, the flexor carpi radialis tendon in its own tunnel in the flexor retinaculum, and the flexor carpi ulnaris tendon attached to the pisiform bone. The bones of hand and wrist include the lower end of radius and ulna, the 8 carpal bones, 5 metacarpal bones, and 14 phalanges. The 8 carpal bones are arranged in 2 rows from lateral to medial. The proximal row is made of scaphoid, lunate, triquetral, and pisiform, whereas the distal row is formed by the trapezium, trapezoid, capitate, and hamate. The arrangement of the carpal bones forms a ventral concavity which is converted into an osteofibrous carpal tunnel by the flexor retinaculum attached to the scaphoid, to the trapezium, to the pisiform, and to the hamate. The joints of hand and wrist include the distal radio-ulnar joint and the wrist joint or the radiocarpal joint, and the joints between the carpal and metacarpal bones, metacarpophalangeal joints, and the interphalangeal joints. I will discuss the joints further in the next few slides. Let's look at the distal radio-ulnar joint. The distal radio-ulnar joint is an L-shaped joint between the lower end of the radius and ulna. It is separated from the radiocarpal or the wrist joints by the triangular fibrocartilage or the articular disc. The capsule is lined by the synovial membrane and projects proximally between the radius and ulna to form a succiform recess. The wrist or the radiocarpal joint is formed between the concave articular surface formed by the distal articular facet of the radius and the distal surface of the triangular fibrocartilage, and the convex surface formed by the scaphoid, lunate, and triquetrum. The capsule of the radiocarpal joint is attached to the distal margin of the radius and ulna and to the proximal row of the carpal bones, and the capsule is reinforced by the extrinsic carpal ligaments. The triangular fibrocartilage complex is made up of triangular fibrocartilage or articular disc, the meniscus homologue, the volar and dorsal radio-ulnar ligaments, and the sheath of extensor carpi ulnaris and the ulnar collateral ligament. The triangular fibrocartilage is attached to the distal margins of the ulnar notch of radius and to the root of the styloid process of ulna, and it holds together the distal ends of radius and ulna. Let's look into this complex of joints formed in the carpal and the metacarpal bones. The bones of the proximal and the distal carpal rows are connected by dorsal, palmar, and interosseous ligaments. The interosseous ligaments between the trapezium, trapezoid, and capitate are often absent. The pisiform bone articulates with the palmar surface of triquetral at a piso-triquetral joint surrounded by a separate joint capsule. The pisiform is also held together in place by the pisohamate and pisometacarpal ligaments, which connect pisiform to the hook of hamate and to the base of fifth metacarpal bone respectively. Normally, there are only three separate joint cavities between this complex of articulations: the carpometacarpal joint of the thumb, the piso-triquetral joint between pisiform and triquetral, and the main complex of joints, the midcarpal joint, between all the carpal bones and the medial four metacarpal bones. The extensor retinaculum is a thick strip of T fascia attached medially to the lower end of the ulna and laterally to the anterior border of the radius. Septa from the deep surface of the extensor retinaculum form 6 separate osteofibrous compartments for the extensor tendons numbered 1 to 6 from lateral to medial. From lateral to medial, compartment number 1 is occupied by abductor pollicis longus and extensor pollicis brevis tendon, and the compartment 2 by the extensor carpi radialis longus and extensor carpi radialis brevis. The compartment number 3 is occupied by extensor pollicis longus and is separated from the compartment 2 by a bony landmark called the Lister's tubercle, and the compartment number 4 is occupied by extensor digitorum and extensor indicis, and the compartment number 5 by the extensor digiti minimi, and usually is superficial to the distal radio-ulnar joint. The compartment number 6 is occupied by the extensor carpi ulnaris and is located in a groove on the head of the ulna between the ulnar styloid and the head of the ulna. Let's look at the carpal tunnel and Guyon's tunnel. The flexor retinaculum is a dense fibrous band which is attached to the tubercle of scaphoid and the tubercle of trapezium laterally to the pisiform bone and to the hook of hamate medially. It converts the concavity of the carpal bones into an osteofibrous tunnel called the carpal tunnel. The median nerve and the tendon of flexor pollicis longus and the tendons of flexor digitorum profundus and flexor digitorum superficialis all pass through the carpal tunnel. The tendon of flexor carpi radialis is enclosed in its own tunnel formed by a split in the flexor retinaculum. The ulnar nerve and vessels and the palmaris longus tendon are located superficial to the flexor retinaculum. Let's look at the MCP joint, the joint between the metacarpal head and the base of the proximal phalanx. Each MCP joint has a palmar and 2 collateral ligaments. The palmar ligaments are thick fibrocartilaginous plates attached firmly to the base of the phalanx and loosely to the neck of the metacarpal. A sesamoid bone is buried on each side of the palmar ligament of the MCP joint of the thumb. The digital nerves and vessels cross on the medial and the lateral side of the fingers. Another important structure of the finger is the pulleys of the flexor tendons. The nomenclature of the pulleys of the flexor tendons is based on the standard nomenclature adopted by the American Society for Surgery of the Hand. The A1 pulley is located anterior to the fibrocartilaginous plate of the MCP joint and may extend over the proximal phalanx. The A2 pulley is the strongest pulley which lies over the middle third of the proximal phalanx, and the A3 pulley is located on the palmar aspect of the PIP joint, the A4 pulley on the middle third of the middle phalanx, and the A5 on the palmar aspect of the DIP. Surgically, the most important pulleys are the A2 and A4 pulleys, which prevent the bow stinging of the flexor tendons. The pulley arrangement in thumb is different from that in the other digits. There are three constant pulleys, the two annular pulleys and an oblique pulley. The A1 pulley is located at the MCP joint, and the oblique pulley is located at the mid portion of the proximal phalanx, and the A2 pulley is located just proximal to the IP joint. Let's look at the synovial linings of the flexor tendons of the hand. The synovial lining of the flexor tendons extends from the distal phalanx to mid-palm for the second, third, and fourth finger. But in case of the fifth finger, the synovial lining extends from the distal phalanx to the wrist. And in the case of thumb, again the synovial lining extends from the distal phalanx to the wrist, but has its own separate tunnel.